Good morning. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really especially glad each one of you are here. I've got a question I want to start with. So how many of you want to make a difference? Make a difference in Midland, in the state, in your families, in the world? I say to you, that's the why. That it's not about the other, it's about us. We want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. And so I think that's a really important question to start with. And to be able to do that, I think you need three things to make that happen. But I believe that's what we have to start with. Is why is important. And it's because I want to make a difference. It's good for us. I hope at the end of this day, you will come away with a picture, a vision, an idea that you can make a difference. And that's my hope. I also hope, and this may or may not happen, but that some of you, or at least one of you, decides being an elected public official is worth it. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. It's a lot of hard work. But at the end of this day, I hope someone's inspired to do it, because I can tell you from my experience that it's probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I wanted you to think about that. But I think the first thing we have to ask, this is kind of a funny story. I asked Ryan this morning if I had to do it. She said, yeah, I think so. So when my kids were really little, and they were like going to grade school, right? And so I'd say, you know what today is? They go, what is it, Dad? What is it? It's the best day of your life. And they're going, oh, come on now. I thought we were going to Disneyland. I mean, something really cool. No, it's the best day of your life. Now, whenever they got into high school, I was asking them the same question almost every morning when they're coming to breakfast. You know what today is? Yes, Dad, we know. It's the best day of our life. We're tired of hearing it. The point to this was, it wasn't about my kids. It was about me. Because I know that day, I had to change the way I was thinking. I was nervous about this. I was worried about that. I had a lot of work to do, blah, blah, blah. But today is the best day of my life. And to be really honest about it, I've been super nervous about today. This morning, I got up and said, you know what? Today is the best day of my life. And it actually made a difference. So I think it's got to start inside of us at the end, at the very beginning. Because if we're not good about ourselves, if we're not at the place where this is the best day of my life, how are we going to change the world? I mean, if we don't believe it inside of us, how are we going to make a difference? So you will hear lots of the hows. I'm going to try to focus on the why, but to tell the story about the why, I have to give you an experience that we went through a few years ago. And I may start with just this idea of the vision. So the first thing you have to decide, or personally, and then you can go outside of that, but what is the one thing? What is your vision? What is your goal? What is the idea that I'm capable of doing? Now that's a big question. And if it's a really big vision, you probably can't do it by yourself. But you got to start there. You've got to say, all right, what is that one thing that I'm uniquely called to do? That's got to be where it starts. And then it's got to kind of stay there, because then things will come up. Fears, life, issues constantly are battling you. And that becomes the urgent, and you start to lose the vision. So that's commitment. You've got to stay with it. You can't necessarily completely ignore all those things, because if you don't, major things happen, The water pipe burst, I'm not worried about that. Well, your house floods. I mean, you got to take care of stuff. So there is distractions along the way, but that's just life. Don't ever forget about the vision. Keep going back to that. And the third thing I think you got to have is a time limit. If you say, oh, I would like to lose weight. Well, we all want to lose weight, or maybe not. But my point is, if you don't have a time limit on that, then forget about it. That's just a dream. It's a wish. That's not going to happen. You have to say, you know what? I want to lose weight. I'm not going to eat that cheeseburger tomorrow, and I'm going to do this in whatever period of time you decide. But that's just a small example. So what I'm going to tell you works in your personal life, works in your business life, works really everywhere, but it especially works if you decide to be in public service, because that's what it takes. I said earlier, you know, if you've got a big vision, it's going to take a lot of people. So a few years ago, and I used to tell the story a lot, I'm exactly wrong, approximately right. So if you fact check me, you'll figure that out. But a few years ago, and I don't know exactly when this happened, but Midland was facing what I thought, what I believed was the biggest problem unfaced or anyone even knew about. And what it was, Midland was out of water. Nobody had asked the question. And I didn't really know a lot about it personally, but it was clear we were in big trouble. And let me set a couple of points to that. So at that particular time, all of West Texas was in this serious drought. Everybody was freaking out because we were in this drought. You know, the lake levels are going down. Every day you'd see in the newspapers or in the news about the lake levels, and just, you know, it was a disaster. And who's going to do something about it? We got to fix this thing. We didn't really know. The other thing that was really important, that this is kind of unknown to most folks, is Midland, San Angelo, and Abilene are all customers of this organization that we were buying water from. I won't go into the weeds too much, but the details were, we have a contract that is expiring in 2029. This is a few years ago, and I'm thinking, that's 20 years from now. What are we gonna do in 20 years? We're out of water? Nobody's ever figured this out. No one's ever done anything about it. Nobody really paid attention to it. So we started thinking about, okay, what's the big idea? What's the big vision? What can we do? And this is a Midlander thing. You'll hear later about Bobby talking about Midland DNA. That's it. Midlanders figure it out. They do it. So the big idea was, we're going to solve our water problem. It's not for a year, it's not for 5 years. We're going to solve for 50 years. In 50 years, if we do this, we don't have to worry about for that. I mean, now, thank God we've got that one behind us, because there's lots of other things that we need to be doing. But it just shows how a community can come together and solve the problem. I'll just go through some of the points. So basically, we're in a drought. We've got this pending water supply that's going away. So how are we going to do it? Well, lots of people got on board. And when you hear 50 years of water, people are going, yeah, I can get on that. So then everybody started conspiring to figure this out. What we figured out to start with, we're wasting a lot of water in Midland. Back then, everybody had green grass. You know why? Our water rates were really cheap. And we had a screwed up system, not to say anyone behind, they did the right thing, but the more water you use, the less you pay per gallon. Which sounds like a pretty good idea if you're trying to raise money, but it doesn't work so good if you're running out of water. So the city council, took a lot of heat, but we changed water rates. We said, if you're gonna go waste water on your grass, you're gonna pay a lot for it. Well, guess what happened? People quit watering the grass. They went to xeriscaping, water reuse. I mean, it was a big topic, and everybody in Midland got on board. It wasn't like us elected officials forcing anything on anybody. It's what the citizens did. And that's Midland. It's just the coolest thing to watch. This idea of 50 years of water took hold. A lot of people got involved in it. It was really fun. I remember going to school, seeing school kids, and I said, what are you guys doing at home? I'm yelling at my parents because they keep the water on while they're brushing their teeth. They need to quit doing that. I said, you're right. Go home and tell them they need to do that. The mayor said. So anyway, it didn't really get me too well with their parents, but anyway. But it was working because it went down to every person in Midland. It was fun to be a part of that. And really, it was a tiny part because there were so many different people that got involved. And kind of the crowning jewel, if you want to think about it, was literally in the 50s. There was a group of council members, mayors, that bought this ranch in Winkler County. And nobody really had done a lot of work since then. These guys were so forward thinking, they said, hey, we might need this someday. there was a big study done, and a guy that I'd heard of, I didn't know him, but he had done this study. He said, there's a lot of water here. So we decided, I wonder if he's right. What if there is a lot of water here? Well, you know what? It's a long way over there. How are we going to get the water here? I mean, even if there's a lot of water, water is like natural gas. Without a pipeline, it's worthless. So anyway, first thing we had to do is figure out, is the water really there? And we spent some money doing that. It was significant, but it was not a hard sell at all, because we said, hey, if these guys think there was water there, let's see if it's still there. Guess what? It is still there. So now, how are we going to do this? And all the naysayers came back and said, well, yeah, you got to build a pipeline. You got to drill these water wells, blah, blah, blah. Each one of them, each water well is $1 million a piece. I mean, these aren't cheap deals. And so the economics of it was overwhelming. The amount of people it was going to take was overwhelming. But again, our vision was 50 years of water. We can do that. How are we going to do it? I don't know. It's the why. Why we are going to do this. It's what I'm going to do. It's what you're going to do. It was a citizen thing. So all of a sudden, all these people came together to build this pipeline. And there were so many cool stories. I remember one person, you think about this, this is a pipeline that's about this, no, it's not even that tall, it's 4 feet tall, which is the same size as the Alaska pipeline. This is a big deal. And each single pipe is specifically made for the project, and it goes 100 miles, goes all the way to Winkler County. And there's somebody, I met this woman, goes down that pipe, inside the pipe the whole time, checking to make sure every joint's done. I think, what kind of a crazy job is that? I would hate to be inside this pipe, and that was what she did. But it's so cool because that was the person that we had to have. It was the same guy in Africa or in Asia that was designing it. It was the same story about the local engineers. I mean, it was crazy how all these people came together and do it. But it was this vision that got us all together. It's the why. So anyway, we got the pipeline built, got all these water wells drilled. Part of that process was the county got really involved with us, and it's this idea of us all being together. The county actually bought a ranch that was close to us, and we were able to tap into it. It all came together. It was just a great project to be a part of, and it just shows to me what Midland's about. It's if we see an issue and we can decide we're going to fix it, I'm going to fix it, it happens. It's what Midland's all about. Think for yourself, what's your one thing? What is your vision of Midland? And I really ask you to consider if you can do it as a public official, an elected public official. And our politics is a mess. That's what it is. But in Midland, we don't have that. What we have is a can-do spirit. We have an ability to come together regardless of what your background is and make a difference. And that is a beautiful thing because I just don't see it in a lot of places. People would ask, what's Midland? And my vision of Midland, or my view of Midland was, you know what, it's the friendliest, most entrepreneurial city in America. And I think we're still there. I guess there's some differences, and I'm not saying that mine's right, anyone else is wrong. But I believe that's part of who we are. We are entrepreneurial, and we are friendly. So let's build from that and do something great. Make a difference in Midland and in the world. God's blessings. Thank you all.